Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. Here we are, the last episode of John Green Month. This time we take a look at Paper Towns, and there's a reason I saved it for last, and I'll get into that later, but let's just get to the book now.
Welcome to
John Green
Month.
The cover is boring. It's bland as hell. I mean, look at that. It's a map with a giant freaking tack in it. Compared to the covers of the other John Green books, this one falls really flat. But let's just get to the story proper. The story takes place in Florida. Hey, cool. I might get to make my own What the Fuck Is Wrong With You video about it. I hope there's naked crazy in it. We start out in the past, in a subdivision called Jefferson Park, named after Dr. Jefferson. No, he's not a doctor. His first name is Doctor, and his middle and last names are Jefferson. The protagonist and narrator, Quentin, known to his friends as Q, and his neighbor, Margot Roth Spiegelman, are 9 years old, and they go to the park, like all children do. And in the subdivision, it's not that far from their house, and they discover the corpse of Robert Joyner, a divorced man who has committed suicide. Whoa! That's heavy stuff for 9-year-olds. I would have been scared shitless by a raccoon, and Quentin's scared. But Margot is just standing there, looking at the guy, asking Q how he thinks that the guy died. And Quentin just wants to go home and probably do what Charles Bronson did after shooting that first guy in Death Wish. And that was the friggin' prologue. The first part begins with the modern day, where Quentin and Margot are high schoolers who have grown apart. Makes sense, I'm not friends with half the people I knew when I was 9. One night, Margot shows up at Quentin's bedroom window wearing all black and black face paint. Her parents are trying to keep her under lock and key since she's been running off at night committing felonies, which makes this less endearing than that scene from the beginning of Up. She convinces him to sneak out and help her get revenge on people she feels have hurt her. Man, if I was him, I'd say, oh yeah, I'd totally help you, girl I haven't spoken to in years. Give me like 10 minutes. I'd close the window, lock it, and go back to bed. But he instead goes along with her, and they go to Walmart, and get possibly the freakiest shopping list ever. It includes 3 whole catfish, Nair, Vaseline, a 6-pack of Mountain Dew, a dozen tulips, a bottle of water, tissues, and a can of blue spray paint. That cashier must have thought they were having the kinkiest sex ever that night. The first victims of Margot's rage are Margot's ex-boyfriend Jace and the girl with whom he was cheating on with Margot, Becca. Quentin calls Becca's parents to inform them about her daughter having sex with Jace. Yes, is your daughter having sex with Margot's boyfriend in your basement? I don't think so. Well, then you better go catch her in the act. As Jace attempts to escape, Quentin takes a picture of him, and little Jason is still flapping about. Then, Quentin and Margot break into Becca's home, graffiti a blue M on her wall, and leave a dead catfish for her. Well, it's not all bad. If Becca sprays the M with blood, she gets the blue coin. The second person they visit is Karen, a person mentioned only once throughout the entire story. They leave her a bouquet of flowers, as she's the person who informed Margot that her boyfriend was cheating on her. Upon hearing the news, Margot cursed her in disbelief. After that, they go to Jace's house, break in, and leave him a fish and a blue M. Man, if they get 8 more of those, they get a shine sprite. They then visit Margot's friend Lacey, who becomes a more prominent part of the story in the last half of the book, and probably the best written character. Margot feels that Lacey had never been a good friend to her, and that she had ridiculed her too often and made backhanded comments that were truly meant as insults. They leave a fish for her and graffiti a blue M on the roof of her car. At 3:15 in the morning, they enter the SunTrust Bank building and they relax on one of the higher floors for a short while. This is the first time Margot calls their town a paper town, describing it as fake and not even hard enough to be made of plastic. After they leave the building, Margot asks Q who he would like to get revenge on, and he chooses the high school bully Chuck Parson. Margot and Q sneak into his house, remove one of his eyebrows with Nair, and then Vaseline all the doorknobs. After getting revenge on him, they break into SeaWorld, but leave disappointed because none of the animals are in their showcases. Because at night, they traditionally put them back into a place where people breaking in couldn't, fall in and get eaten. And then part 1 is over, and you can close the book and be happy that you read another fantastic John Green book. If you insist on reading on, however, then what happens next is the plot. Margot and Q return to their homes close to the time they're supposed to be getting up in the morning for school. I'd be dead at that point, and I'd pull a Ferris Bueller and try to get a day off. Quentin, however, goes to school, and all he thinks about is how things have changed between him and Margot, and how much that night changed him. He wonders if Margot will start hanging out with him and his friends Ben and Radar. Radar being named sucks because he used to be short and wear glasses, like Radar from MASH, but he grew and got contacts, so the name doesn't make sense, but they're not re-nicknaming him. And also, Radar's parents have the largest collection of black Santas, which has no bearing on the plot whatsoever. It's just an interesting fact that's shoved into our face at every opportunity. However, Margot doesn't show up to school that day. After she's been missing for 3 days, her parents file a missing persons report. Margot's run away 5 times in the past few years, so her parents are more frustrated than worried about her, and they change the locks on her. After learning that she's run away, Q notices a poster of Woody Guthrie taped to the back of her shades. The poster leads him to a song called Walt Whitman's Niece, which in turn leads him to a book of poems, Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. The poem has highlighted sections that Q believes to be cues left by Margot to lead him to where she is. Q continues to search for clues and finds an address scrawled on a small piece of paper located on his door. Hoping it'll lead them to where she's hiding, Q and his friends skip school the following day and go to the place on the piece of paper. They find an old abandoned mini-mall, which contains evidence that Margot was recently there, as well as a spray-painted message on the wall that leads him to believe that she's committed suicide, and expects him to find her body. Okay, Quentin, can we talk for a moment? Why do you think that she picked you to be her savior? Seriously, ever think the clues weren't meant for you? You're finding clues in the stupidest places. Maybe she doesn't want to be found, you asshat! Excuse me. Eventually, the clues lead Q to believe that Margot might be hiding out, or buried in one of the many abandoned subdivision projects around Orlando. He drives to all of the subdivisions where he feels she might be hiding, but he has no luck locating her. While getting ready for graduation, he makes a connection using a map he found searching for her, which leads him to discover that she's been hiding in a fictional town in New York called Aglo, which was created as a copyright trap by map makers. Q, Radar, Ben, and Lacey all opt to skip graduation to drive to New York to search for her. They make the drive from Orlando, Florida to Aglo in just shy of 24 hours, which the book divided into parts based on the hour. And it's admittedly a fun part of the book, and Lacey comes into her own, dropping everything to find the girl who, before she disappeared, left a fish in her car. And that makes her my favorite character, because she genuinely cares for Margot. If not, she wouldn't have went after her. She's smart, level-headed, and much wiser than Q ever is. Q thinks that Margot is the one for him, and that she and him would end up together because of one night. I've spent weeks with people and have never felt that they're the one, simply because they came to me for help. For God's sake, she went to you because you had a car, Quentin. Her parents took hers away. She needed a driver. That's it. No more, no less. Lacey went after her because she felt that she was a terrible friend and wanted to make things right. She thought that Margot was dead and felt bad about what happened. They find Margot living in an old dilapidated barn, but instead of being grateful for them finding her, she reacts negatively. Margot hadn't intended for them to find her. Hey Q, are you still the Margot Whisperer? Angry that Margot isn't grateful for all their efforts, Radar, Ben, and Lacey leave and spend the night at a hotel. Q stays behind and talks things over with Margot. She decides to go to New York City. Margot and Q kiss, and Q wants to stay with her, but it's implied that he'll return home with his friends in the end, and possibly reunite with Margot sometime in the future. They take separate paths, which makes, get this, the entire book completely pointless. The entire last 2 parts were about finding Margot and bringing her home. And then, no wait, let's just leave her again. This book was a complete letdown. It is not John Green's finest hour. I much preferred the other 3 to this one. Don't get me wrong, it was great up until part 2 started. The ending left me with a terrible taste in my mouth. Thank God I didn't read this before The Fault in Our Stars, because it would have forever tainted my mind of John Green's writing. Because this was just a meh book. And, well, that's it. Meh. It wasn't good, but Lacey and the Black Santa stuff redeemed it enough to let me finish it. Don't get me wrong, it's nothing compared to Backwards or Before Dishonor. It wasn't good, but it wasn't complete crap. Maybe if John split the point of view from part 1 as Q, part 2 as Ben as he watched his best friend go batshit crazy over a girl, and part 3 is Lacey as she goes on a quest to redeem herself from Margot. But nope, all Q all the time. So that was John Green Month. I overly enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Tell me if you like the months and of doing set stuff, and get ready for October, because it's gonna get scary down here in the Lair. See you next time. Soon I will have my vengeance.